Hello! Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast 1-hour advanced English listening practice topic name is grammar listening practice.
We have an incredible set of ideas to unpack today.
They really do. We're about to do a deep dive that, honestly, it challenges pretty much everything we've all been taught about English grammar. It's sort of celebrating what we usually call our own mistakes.
Exactly. And if you're out there listening, trying to get to that next level of fluency, or maybe you're just a native speaker who's always wondered why the correct rules feel so awkward to say out loud.
Then this is for you. This is a complete reevaluation of how language actually works in the real world.
That's our mission for this deep dive. We want to move past those really rigid, prescriptive rules, the shoulds and shouldn'ts that got drilled into us in a classroom.
Right, the red ink all over your essays.
That's the one. And we're going to dive headfirst into the messy, but also kind of glorious reality of conversational English.
And this is so important for any advanced listener, isn't it? Because once you get the real rules, the spoken rules, the language just clicks. It stops sounding like a minefield of errors.
And it reveals itself as this incredibly efficient social tool that it's always been.
It's really about getting to the bottom of why the English we speak every day sounds so, quote-unquote, wrong when you hold it up against the English we're supposed to write.
And we're going to spend our time today celebrating these so-called flaws.
Yeah.
We're going to treat them as really sophisticated, real-time linguistic features.
Because this is the language that, 99.9% of fluent speakers use every single day. It's basically its own living, breathing dialect.
To really get our heads around this, we have to set the stage. We need to define the two camps, the two realities we're comparing.
Okay.
On one side, you have written standard English. This is the formal stuff. It's structured, it's carefully polished, it's designed to last.
The language of textbooks, legal documents, that kind of thing.
Precisely. It's built for clarity when you can't rely on context. But then on the other side, you have spoken English.
Which is the total opposite.
It's fast, it's collaborative, it's messy, and it completely depends on shared context, on gestures, on your tone of voice.
And that's where you get that internal conflict, that little cringe you feel when you're replaying a conversation in your head and you think, ugh, I said if I would went.
Yes, that feeling. That's just the clash. It's these two different dialects fighting for control inside your brain.
And understanding that difference, for you, the listener, it's a game changer. It gives you confidence.
It makes you a way better listener and a much more authentic, fluent speaker. You start to see the efficiency in a conversation, not just the correctness.
You stop correcting yourself all the time.
You stop policing your own language. And you realize that when you use these shortcuts, you aren't being lazy. You're actually operating your brain at, peak linguistic speed.
Okay, so let's get into it. The foundation of all this. Our sources just come right out and call the idea of a complete sentence, subject, verb, object, complete thought, the biggest lie we were ever taught about English.
It really is. And it's a lie that just falls apart the second you look at real life.
How so?
Just record any natural conversation. 5 minutes. Transcribe it. I guarantee you will find almost zero complete, grammatically perfect sentences that a teacher would approve of.
So what are we speaking in, if not sentences?
We speak in utterance chunks. We use fragments, we repeat ourselves, we have false starts, we build ideas together.
So sentences are for the page.
Sentences are for writing, utterances are for talking. Speaking in perfect, complete sentences would make you sound like a robot. It's stilted, it's unnatural.
Okay, so let's break that down more. Utterances versus sentences. What is the absolute core difference there? Is it just about the structure being incomplete?
It goes deeper than that. An utterance is a unit of meaning that's defined by your intonation and the context you're in. A sentence, on the other hand, is a unit of syntax defined by its grammatical structure.
So one is about rules, the other is about meaning.
Exactly. And here's the key. An utterance is collaborative. It demands that the listener actively participate. They have to predict things, fill in the blanks using the context.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. If I write down the words "the dog" on a piece of paper, it's just a fragment. It's meaningless.
Right.
But if you and I are in a house and I suddenly shout "the dog" with a panicked tone while pointing at an open front door.
Okay, I get it. It's a perfectly complete thought. The dog is out.
It's a perfectly functional utterance. The meaning is 100% clear, even with only 2 words.
Let's use that coffee shop chat example from the research. It's such a perfect illustration of this co-construction of meaning.
Yeah, let's walk through it. So speaker A starts, the new place on 5th.
And notice that's not a sentence. It just trails off.
But speaker B knows exactly what's happening. They jump in. The one with the weird neon cat.
And now they've established a shared location for the fragment.
Then A says, totally, so I went last night. And B interrupts again.
Alone.
No. With Sarah, the one from...
I love this part. A doesn't even need to finish the thought. B is already there, predicting the girl who dated the DJ.
Her. Anyway, the latte was like $15.
And then you get the emotional reaction, 15, are you kidding me?
And A's final utterance is just 2 words. I'm dead.
If you look at that on a page, it's just a mess of incomplete thoughts.
A total mess. But did they understand each other perfectly?
100%. They communicated a location, who was there, an emotional shock about the price, everything.
That's what we call the duet analogy. A conversation isn't a solo performance where one person delivers a perfectly polished speech.
It's a duet.
It's a rapid-fire duet where the meaning is constantly being built or co-constructed by both people in real time.
So when I'm listening to someone, I'm not just passively downloading information. My brain is actively working, predicting, filling in the gaps the second they pause.
That's the cognitive magic of fluency. It's an incredible feat. We rely on our shared history, the physical space we're in, our tone of voice, and crucially, on back channeling.
What's back channeling?
It's all those little noises we make when someone else is talking. Right? No way.
They're not just noises to show I'm awake.
No, they are grammar signals. They're a message you're sending to the speaker that says, yep, I'm with you. I've filled in the context. I'm ready for the next chunk.
So this whole collaborative effort is what lets us be so structurally messy, but still communicate perfectly.
It's the engine of spoken language.
Okay, if conversation is this duet built on shared context, then there has to be a mechanism that makes it fast. And that seems to be ellipsis.
Ellipsis, yeah. Just leaving stuff out.
Yeah.
Strategically removing words that are completely obvious from the situation.
Written English seems to hate this. It wants every piece to be there on the page.
It has to, because it doesn't have a shared immediate context. But spoken English is, as you said, the ultimate minimalist. It relies on ellipsis constantly.
The easy examples are everywhere, right? Want coffee.
Instead of the full, formal, do you want coffee or going to the party later?
Instead of, are you going to the party later? It's just a stripping away of the predictable parts.
It is. But I can anticipate a question from a learner. Isn't this risky? Doesn't teaching this just sound like an invitation to be careless with grammar?
That's a good point. It feels like you're learning the wrong way.
And that's the fear that comes from a prescriptive mindset. The descriptive reality, what actually happens, is that this isn't carelessness at all. It's the absolute peak of communicative efficiency.
How so?
Your brain isn't skipping those words because it's lazy. It's skipping them because it's so fast, it's already anticipated the grammatical structure based on the context and the first couple of words.
So it's not omitting them, it's just jumping over them because it knows they're coming.
It speeds up the exchange of information hugely. If I walk into the kitchen where you are and just say, seen the keys.
Right. I know you mean, have you seen my keys? The rest is just implied.
Exactly. You've signaled that we both know whose keys you're asking me. You're using the present perfect tense. All of that is bundled into just 3 syllables.
It's a complex shorthand.
It's the linguistic equivalent of a nod or a gesture. And here's something interesting our sources pointed out. The amount of ellipsis you use can be a marker of social intimacy.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, the more you can leave out and still be perfectly understood, the closer your social bond must be. It means you have a higher degree of shared context and history.
That's fascinating. So the less grammar you use, the more it implies you're in sync with the other person.
It's a strong possibility. Just look at the extreme cases, like 0 subject sentences. You see this in text messages or diaries all the time.
Like went to the store, bought milk, forgot eggs again.
Typical, yes.
Yeah.
You see how there's no I? The subject is completely gone. That stripped-down pattern is used constantly in quick dialogue because it gives you maximum information with minimum effort. It's a signal that says, we're moving fast, and we both know who's doing the action.
All right, let's move into what feels like more dangerous territory. The things that aren't just efficient, but feel actively wrong. The stuff that makes us feel a bit ashamed when we catch ourselves saying it.
Yes, the genuine linguistic battlegrounds.
And the most famous one has to be pronouns. The systematic preference for saying, me and him went to the store over the correct rule of he and I went to the store.
This is the absolute classic battlefield of hypercorrection.
Every person who's been through school knows the rule. If the pronoun is the subject, it has to be he or I.
That's the written rule. Yet, In casual, fast speech, almost universally, people say, me and Sarah went to the movies. It just sounds and feels more natural to most people's ears than Sarah and I went to the movies.
So why is that? If we all know the rule, why do we break it so consistently?
Because it's not about ignorance. The research shows this is a highly systematic pattern. It's not random. In conversational grammar, that whole phrase, me and X, is often treated as a single, indivisible noun unit, a chunk.
So the brain doesn't see me and Sarah as two separate subjects. It sees me and Sarah as one thing.
That's a great way to put it. The chunk resists being broken up to have its internal grammar changed. And there's another pattern, especially with younger speakers, the tendency to put the self-reference first. Me and Sarah, not the polite Sarah and me.
So it's not that people don't know a rule, it's that they're following a different rule. A conversational rule that prioritizes keeping the phrase together over the formal case of the pronouns inside it.
That's it exactly. But we can't ignore the social angle here. This is where hypercorrection comes in.
Okay, define hypercorrection. Because if me and Sarah is more efficient, why do so many people try so hard to say Sarah and I, even when it feels a bit stiff?
Because language isn't just for transferring data, it's a social tool. And the prestige dialect, which is standard written English, carries social weight. It signals education.
So you want to sound smart.
You want to sound smart. Hypercorrection is that deliberate, self-monitoring effort to apply the formal school rule, often in a casual context where it doesn't quite fit. It's driven by the anxiety of being judged as uneducated.
So when I say he and I are going, I'm signaling that I know the formal rule.
You are. And you're also signaling that you are actively thinking about your grammar, which, paradoxically, can make you sound less natural and less fluent in a casual chat.
That's the perfect conflict. The casual me and X signals fluency and naturalness, but the hypercorrected he and I signals social prestige and education. You have to choose.
You're constantly code switching based on the situation.
Let's look at another one that looks just completely wrong on the page, but again, sounds so natural when you hear it. The double copula.
Yes. The phrase that uses two is back to back. The thing is that nobody listens.
From a school grammar point of view, that second is just redundant. It's a mistake.
It is. The sentence should be, the thing is that nobody listens. But just say it out loud. The problem is that we're running out of time. It has a certain rhythm to it, a natural flow.
It really does. It sounds like someone actually talking, thinking on their feet. So what's the linguistic explanation? It doesn't seem efficient like ellipsis was. This is adding a word.
This is where we see the machinery of the brain at work. It's analyzed not as an error, but as a byproduct of real-time sentence planning.
So it's like a glitch in the system.
Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
When you're speaking, your brain is running at least two processes in parallel. You have the framing process and the content planning process.
Okay, walk me through that.
The speaker starts with a framing device, a common phrase like, the thing is. That first is the verb, the copula, for the subject, the thing.
Yeah.
Grammatically, that clause is now complete.
The thing is, full stop.
Right. But your brain is moving so fast, it doesn't stop. It's already planning the next part, the actual content, which is a whole new clause. And that clause also needs a verb to kick it off.
And it just defaults to inserting another is.
It's like the first is signs off on the frame, and the second is launches the main content. It's like a tiny cognitive buffer, a moment of lag between the two systems.
That is a brilliant way to think about it, a buffering error. The brain is so focused on the complex idea it's about to explain that it doesn't smooth out the little transition between the two parts.
That's the theory, and you hear this everywhere. From highly educated academics, from politicians, from professional speakers, the moment they go off script. It's not a sign of a lack of knowledge. It's evidence of a brain under a high cognitive load, generating complex syntax at incredible speed.
Okay, let's move on to something that has been a really visible change in English, especially over the last, 20 or 30 years, the quotative shift.
The rise of, I was like, and she goes.
Yeah, my parents' generation hated it. It was seen as this, lazy, meaningless phrase.
The resistance was definitely fierce. But, the battle is over. Be like one. It is now the dominant, most versatile way for most speakers to introduce not just speech, but thoughts and attitudes too.
So why do you call it an upgrade? What was wrong with just saying, said? She said this, it seems perfectly fine.
Said is fine, but it's functionally very limited. All said tells you is that words came out of a person's mouth. Be, on the other hand, just blows the doors off your narrative options.
It expands the palette, you're saying.
Dramatically. It gives you a level of performance, of dramatic reenactment that said just can't touch.
Okay, so what can be like do that said can't?
It can introduce an internal thought, And I was like, this is a terrible idea. You can't say, and I said to myself, this is a terrible idea. It's clunky.
True.
It can introduce a feeling, a nonverbal gesture, a sound. For instance, if you say, she said it was delicious, that's just reporting words. But if you say, she was like, that was delicious, while rubbing your stomach, you're conveying tone, action, and enthusiasm. Or you could say, she was like, with a shrug, it was delicious, and convey total sarcasm.
The example from the research really makes this clear. It's about telling a whole story, not just quoting a line.
Yes, exactly. Picture the scene they described. So I walk in, and my boss is like, and here the speaker makes an angry grunting noise. And I'm like, and then the speaker makes a nervous gulping sound.
Wow. Okay, so in one sentence with be like, the speaker introduced a sound, an internal feeling, and a nonverbal action. You're conveying the entire scene.
You can't do that with said.
Yeah.
It's an evolution in our grammar driven by our desire for better, more emotional, more performative storytelling and conversation. The performance is built right into the verb.
Okay, let's turn to something that can be a real point of confusion and, honestly, a source of prejudice. Features that get mislabeled as just bad grammar.
Yes, this is crucial. We need to talk about aspectual markers. These are features that provide incredible temporal precision. They're about how an action happens in time.
And the most famous example is the invariant be, which is a core feature of African American English.
Correct. So when someone who isn't familiar with this grammar system hears a sentence like, she be working, their first impulse, often a biased one, is to think the speaker doesn't know how to conjugate the verb to be.
They think it should be, she is working.
But that assumption is completely wrong, because it's trying to apply the rules of one language system, Standard English, to a completely different and equally consistent grammar system.
So what does she be working actually mean?
In AAE, the invariant be is a sophisticated aspectual marker. It signals a habitual, recurrent, or ongoing state. It means something that happens regularly.
So it doesn't mean she is working right now. It means she works regularly, or she's usually working.
Exactly. The proof of the sophistication is that the grammar system also has a way to talk about what's happening right now. To do that, the speaker would drop the be and just say, she working.
Wait, let's pause on that because that's the aha moment right there.
Yeah.
So, she working means right now, in this moment.
Yes, immediate action.
And she be working means it's a regular, habitual thing.
That's the structural distinction that proves this is a logical, rule-based grammar, not a collection of mistakes. Standard English actually has to work harder to make that distinction. It has to add an adverb, like always, or usually, or every day.
So AAE builds that meaning right into the verb structure itself. It's actually more efficient.
You could absolutely make that argument. It uses fewer words to convey complex information about time and habit.
And are we seeing similar things pop up elsewhere?
We are. We're seeing related structures, like the habitual do, appear in more mainstream informal speech. Phrases like, she do be like that, or he do that all the time.
I've heard that. It adds emphasis.
It adds emphasis, but it also adds precision. It's emphasizing a pattern, an inherent quality. It's not ignorance. It's an additional layer of meaning.
All right, this next section is probably the biggest collision of all, where the formal rules just slam right into spoken reality. The conditional clause?
The dreaded third conditional. The one for talking about impossible past situations. The one every English learner struggles with.
The rule we're all taught is that you have to mix the tenses. If I had known, that's past perfect, I would have come.
That is the academically correct written form. But in almost all casual, fast speech, from every demographic, people consistently use what linguists sometimes call the fake conditional. If I would have known, I would have come.
We're told that's wrong because you can't have would have in the if part of the sentence, and yet we all do it.
Well,
why? Why does this one so consistently overpower the formal rule?
It's a combination of things. It's about function, symmetry, and phonetics. Functionally, in our spoken language, would have has basically become the universal marker for any hypothetical situation. It just simplifies the cognitive load.
So instead of having to remember this complex tense mixing rule, the brain just says, hypothetical in the past, slap a would have on it.
Pretty much. And that leads to the second point, symmetry. The brain loves patterns.
What do you mean by symmetry here?
Mixing if I had known with I would have come requires your brain to switch its grammatical framework halfway through the sentence. For spontaneous speech with no time to edit, that's a lot of work.
But using would in both clauses.
If I would known, I would come. It makes the two halves of the sentence symmetrical. They have the same structure. That reduces the processing costs for your brain when you're talking on the fly. It's just easier and faster to produce.
And then there's the sound of it, the phonetics.
This is the real engine behind the change. In fast speech, nobody says would have. We say would.
Right. It gets crushed down into one syllable.
And that sound, would, is acoustically almost identical to the sound would of.
Oh, wow. So that's why so many people write would have by mistake. They're writing what they hear.
They're writing what they hear. And that acoustic similarity reinforces the wrong structure in our brains. It just sounds right.
Yeah.
And it makes the correct version, if I had known, sound, to many modern ears, a little bit stilted, a little too formal.
So the speed and the sound of the language are literally reshaping the grammar over time.
Absolutely.
Let's shift to a more recent evolution, one that really came from the internet. The rise of because, followed by, well, not much.
Yes, the rise of because X, the glorious, super efficient, I'm staying home because reasons.
Or I'm exhausted because Tuesdays.
Traditionally, because is a subordinating conjunction. It needs a full clause after it. I'm staying home because I feel sick.
But now you can just follow it with a noun, because science, or an adjective, because tired, and it works.
It works perfectly in informal speech. And it's a legitimate grammatical evolution. It's not just a fad.
What's the function? What makes it more powerful than just saying the full reason?
It's doing something more sophisticated. It's often a form of meta-commentary. When you say because Tuesdays, you're tapping into a shared cultural understanding that Tuesdays are just a grind. You don't need to explain it. The single word carries all that context.
And when you say because reasons,
You're signaling that the full explanation is either too complex, too private, or that you just don't want to give it. It's a rhetorical move. It's a statement about the reason rather than the reason itself.
so it's shorter, punchier, and often funnier.
And by treating because more like a preposition that can just link to a noun, speakers are getting the maximum amount of expressive power with the minimum number of words. It's a perfect example of conversational efficiency winning out over old school rules.
We've been talking a lot about words and sentence structure, but a huge part of spoken grammar isn't words at all. It's the other stuff, the invisible grammar.
Yes. Intonation, hesitation. This is where you really level up as a listener, when you stop hearing these things as noise and start hearing them as signals.
Let's start with fillers. The ums, like,
Yeah.
these are universally seen as bad, right? A sign you're unprepared or you don't know what you're talking about.
That's the common criticism.
Yeah.
But the linguistic reality is that they are incredibly sophisticated tools for managing a conversation.
They're not just meaningless pauses.
Far from it. They are meta-communicative tools. They are signals about the conversation, not just content in the conversation. They manage the flow, they express attitude, and they do crucial social work.
Let's take, as an example, it gets so much hate. What's the social function there?
Well, beyond its use as a quotative, which we already discussed, like is often used as a hedge or a softener. Take the example sentence. I mean, it's not that I hate the movie, it's just the ending felt kind of rushed,
Okay.
Now let's take all the fillers out. I don't hate the movie, the ending felt rushed.
Wow, that's so much more blunt. It's harsh.
It's definitive and confrontational. By putting in, it's just, the speaker is performing an act of linguistic politeness. They're softening the criticism.
You're making it sound less like a final judgment and more like a collaborative opinion they're offering up for discussion.
That's exactly it. The fillers make the statement less assertive and invite the other person to agree or disagree without it feeling like a fight. And interestingly, some studies show that using fillers at the start of your turn can actually make you sound more thoughtful.
How can that be?
Because it signals to the listener, hold on, I am considering my response carefully before I give you a definitive answer. It can project conscientiousness.
Okay, beyond fillers, what about pitch and pace? How is intonation a form of grammar? Let's talk about the two big ones that always get made fun of, upspeak and vocal fry.
Okay, upspeak. That's when you end a statement with a rising pitch, so it sounds like a question.
Right. So I went to the store and I bought some milk. It's often criticized as sounding insecure, like you're not sure of what you're saying.
And it can be that. But more often, especially in long narratives, it serves a really important function. It's a continuous check-in with your listener.
A check-in?
Yeah, if you're telling a long story. So I was at the coffee shop, and this guy just cuts right in front of me in line. And I was so shocked. Each one of those little rises in pitch is a verbal nudge to the listener. It's saying, Are you still with me? Are you following this? Do we still have a shared understanding of the situation?
So it's actually a tool to maintain engagement.
It's a key conversational management strategy. It's collaborative.
Okay, so if upspeak is collaborative, what about vocal fry? That low, creaky sound at the end of a sentence.
Vocal fry often serves the opposite purpose. While upspeak invites the listener in, vocal fry can be a way of holding the floor.
What do you mean holding the floor?
It's a signal to the other people in the conversation that you are not finished with your turn to speak. That low, creaky vibration at the end of your sentence subtly says, I'm pausing for a breath, but I have more to say, so don't interrupt me.
It's a low-frequency stop sign.
That's a great way of putting it. It's an acoustic tool for managing speaking time, especially in a conversation where multiple people might be competing to talk. Both of these show that pitch isn't just decoration, it's a vital, invisible part of our grammatical system.
So as we start to wrap this up, it feels like all the old boundaries are just collapsing.
They really are. The lines we used to draw between formal writing and casual speech are getting blurrier and blurrier every day.
Digital communication is a huge part of that. Texting, messaging. It's forcing us to write the way we talk, using things like no way or deadass in written form.
And it's going the other way, too.
Yeah.
Spoken language is borrowing from written language. You hear people literally say the letters LOL out loud, or use the word slash as a conjunction, like the movie was really fun / kind of sad.
The border is totally porous now, and it seems like spoken grammar, with its focus on speed and efficiency, is the one driving all the change.
It is.
So this brings us to the big question. If all these things we've talked about, the fragments, the me and him, the because reasons, are systematic and have their own rules, is there even such a thing as bad grammar in speech anymore?
That's the core of the descriptivist view of language. And the answer is yes, there is, but we have to redefine what we mean by bad.
It's not just anything goes.
Definitely not. It's about recognizing that different dialects, whether it's African American English, Appalachian English, Scottish English, are not failed attempts to speak standard English. They are their own distinct, complex, internally consistent grammar systems.
So when is spoken grammar actually wrong, then?
The sources we looked at define wrong in speech under only 2 real conditions. First, if your communication genuinely fails. If the listener truly cannot understand your intended meaning because your structure is just incoherent.
Okay, that makes sense. Communication breakdown.
And the second, which is more about social context, is when you fail to use the prestige dialect in a high-stakes situation where it's expected.
Like a job interview.
A job interview, a court testimony, a formal academic presentation. In those monitored contexts, the rules of standard written English are the expectation. Failing to use them can have negative consequences.
But outside of those 2 specific situations...
Outside of those, you're just using the dialect that's appropriate for your community and the conversation you're in. And linguistically, that is perfectly correct.
That is just so liberating to hear. It means that every single thing we've been taught to feel is a mistake. The sentence fragments, I was like, it's not a flaw.
It's evidence. It's evidence of your brain doing something unbelievably complex in real time.
It's juggling everything at once.
It's juggling syntax, predicting what the listener is thinking, reading social cues, calibrating emotions, maintaining a rhythm, all without a delete key.
Right, there's no backspace in speech.
Writing is an amazing technology for freezing language and time. But speech is the original magic. It's been around for hundreds of thousands of years. And the raw cognitive power it takes to speak fluently is so much greater than what they teach you in a grammar textbook.
So the next time you're talking and you catch yourself using one of these features, don't cringe.
Don't you dare cringe.
Recognize it for what it is, a sign of real linguistic power. Fluency in the hardest dialect there is, real-time, collaborative conversation.
And here's a final thought for you to chew on. The complexity of your spoken grammar, all these shortcuts, they aren't just about fluency. They tell you something about your own cognitive speed.
What do you mean?
If your brain is inserting a double copula because it's planning the next clause, or using an aspectual be for maximum precision, think about how much faster your brain is working than when you're slowly writing a sentence, editing it, and then rereading it.
The amount of simultaneous processing is just massive.
It's massive. It means your brain is probably planning the next 3 conversational moves while you're still finishing your current utterance. That efficiency isn't a mistake, it's a cognitive superpower. And it deserves to be celebrated.
If you found these insights into real-life English usage helpful for your listening and speaking practice, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll be back soon for our next deep dive.
Hello, Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's deep dive, which you might know as Advanced English Grammar Listening Practice, is focused on the incredibly useful topic: how to use grammar to sound more polite.
That's a great title because it gets right to the point. We're not talking about, the basics.
Right, not just please and thank you.
Exactly. This is about the core mechanics. We're going straight to how you can leverage grammatical structures, things like verb tense, conditional phrasing, and your choice of modal verbs to transform a direct command into something much more diplomatic. A gracious request.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because I think for anyone who has ever, stared at a draft email and just thought, wow, that sounds so aggressive, or I sound like I'm giving an order, this deep dive is going to be essential.
It really is.
We're talking about using the very skeleton of the language, its structure, to manage how people feel, to manage those interpersonal expectations. It could be in any situation, really.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're trying to negotiate a really tough deadline at work, or maybe addressing a failure with a colleague, or even just communicating sensitive news to a client.
Your grammar choices in those moments can honestly be more important than your vocabulary.
That's it. The fundamental goal here with all this polite grammar is to preserve what we call the listener's face. It's about respecting their autonomy.
Even if you're the boss.
Especially if you're the boss. Even if you hold the formal authority, you're the manager, you're the parent, you're the person who is owed the information. If you can make a tough request sound like a collaboration,
You minimize that defensiveness.
you minimize defensiveness and you instantly improve the rapport. That's the diplomatic edge we're really aiming for today.
So where do we start? What's the first step?
Well, the most immediate and I think the most impactful shift you can make is what we're calling the question revolution.
The question revolution. I like it. So this is about the what the material calls the 300% politeness boost you get by just shifting from a statement to a question.
It's a huge boost. This is really foundational communication theory. A declarative sentence, an imperative command like, send me the file.
Which I've definitely written in an email before.
We all have. But it instantly asserts a power imbalance. It demands compliance and gives the listener zero perceived choice. It might be efficient, sure, but it eats up your goodwill.
Okay, so a question does the opposite.
A question, by contrast, respects the listener's autonomy. It implies they could refuse, even if the situation dictates they probably won't. It's an invitation, not an imposition.
Let's get practical with this. Let's walk through some of these transformations, moving through what we can call the levels of politeness. So we start with a blunt imperative, level 0.
Send me the file.
Simple, to the point, maybe a little rude.
Level 1 is the immediate improvement. You turn it into a simple question, usually with a standard modal verb. So, could you send me the file?
And that's already a massive improvement. Just using could acknowledges that, sending it takes their time, their ability, their effort. It's polite, but standard.
It's standard. But the truly advanced move is level 2, or even level 3. These are the ultra-polite versions that start to stack these grammatical devices on top of each other.
So same file request. What does the ultra-polite version sound like?
It would be something like, would you mind sending the file when you have a second?
Okay, there's a lot going on there. The grammar is doing some really heavy lifting.
It is. The layers are fascinating when you break them down. First, you've got the conditional modal, would you mind, which is a complex structure. It turns the request into an inquiry about their internal state.
You're not asking them to do the task. You're asking if the task creates an objection for them.
That's the key distinction. And second, you layer in that time filler when you have a second. This is such a crucial hedging phrase. It minimizes the perceived urgency and the effort required from them. You're signaling that your needs are actually less important than whatever they're currently working on.
That distinction, asking about their objection versus asking about the task itself, that really is the core of understanding the psychology of deference, isn't it?
It is.
Let's try another one. A really common high-pressure situation. Setting a deadline. If you say, finish this today.
You're commanding them. You're telling them to stop everything else. But if you shift it to the basic question, can you finish this today? You're just checking on their capability.
But the real strategy comes in with the next level. The most gracious version is when you consciously build in an escape route, an easy out.
Right. So you might phrase it as, do you think you'll be able to finish this today, or would tomorrow be better?
And that is such effective leadership communication, because by genuinely offering an alternative, even if deep down you really, really need it today, you're communicating that their schedule, their mental health, that these are factors you actually consider.
It moves the entire interaction away from compliance and towards collaborative scheduling.
Yeah.
The best part is if they reply, you know what, tomorrow would be better, you haven't lost face.
Because you were the one who suggested it.
You suggested it. Let's look at a simpler context. A service request, you're at a cafe, bring me water is just an order.
Level 1 would be the standard, could I have some water, please?
And that's perfectly fine. But the ultimate highly indirect politeness, and you hear this a lot in British English, is the almost charming, I wonder if it might be possible to have a glass of water when you're next passing.
Wow. That last example is a masterclass in stacking these structures. How many different politeness devices are actually working in that one phrase?
Oh, at least 4. You've got the soft inquiry starter, I wonder if. Then you have the double conditional modal, might be possible.
Okay, 2.
Then the indefinite article, a glass of water, which makes the object sound less specific, less demanding. And finally, the time constraint when you're next passing, which minimizes the perceived interruption you're causing.
It's a beautifully complex way to ask for something so simple. It just demonstrates maximum deference.
It really does. And this moves us perfectly onto the architecture of what we can call the modal verb politeness ladder.
The latter. Okay, so we often treat modals, words like can, could, would, might, as if they're interchangeable. But you're saying they represent a distinct hierarchy.
A definite hierarchy of perceived authority and request softness. It's a progression that moves systematically from just functional ability to seeking deep willingness, and finally to requesting true permission.
Let's use an example. Say the request is review this document. How does that travel up the ladder?
Okay, so the journey starts with the casual. Can you review this? This is purely practical. It's asking, are you capable? Do you have the skills or the time?
Then we step up to, could you review this? This feels like standard workplace politeness to me.
It is. It uses the past tense of can to introduce that first layer of psychological distance we'll talk more about later. It just makes it feel less immediate, less demanding than can.
Now, the jump to would you review this? That feels significant.
It is significant. This is more formal, more deferential, because would asks not just about capability like can does, but about willingness.
Huh?
You are asking, are you personally prepared to make this sacrifice of your time and effort for me? Because you're engaging their will, the request is perceived as more sincere and more respectful of their personal boundaries.
I want to probe that just a little bit because I think a listener might be wondering,
Yeah.
if I use could all the time, am I being rude? Like, when should I make that switch to would?
That's a great question. No, could is absolutely not rude. It's the standard. But if the person you're addressing is, say, more senior than you, or if the request requires a significant amount of effort, like reviewing a 50-page document versus a quick email, would communicates that you recognize the burden.
And that recognition of the burden is a key part of politeness.
It is. So moving up the ladder, then we get into the really deferential zone with, might you review this?
You don't hear that one as often.
No, because it suggests a very small, almost improbable possibility. By using might, you're minimizing the imposition so drastically, making the request feel extremely light. It's almost always paired with other softeners, like perhaps or possibly.
Yeah. And finally, the summit. The peak of politeness and grammatical complexity.
That would be something like, I wonder if you'd mind reviewing this at your earliest convenience.
Maximum deference achieved.
You're not just asking them to do a task anymore. You're checking if the task itself creates an internal objection for them. And you're using the conditional past tense. You'd mind. The entire progression just shows that the most advanced politeness techniques use grammar to subtly seek permission rather than just demanding compliance, even when you're technically entitled to get the result.
Okay, so that's the modal ladder. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The next major technique you mentioned involves leveraging time and tense. You called it psychological velvet.
Yes, psychological velvet. It's an incredibly powerful technique, and it's especially useful in written communication, like email, where your tone can so easily be lost or misread.
I'm still stuck on that phrase. It's such a perfect metaphor. So it's about creating distance from the immediate reality of the request, making it feel less urgent, less demanding.
That's it. And the simplest way to apply it is by shifting into the past tense, even when your request is about the present or the near future.
How does that work?
Well, when you use past tense modals like could or would, or past continuous tenses like I was hoping or I wanted to check, you present the action as an established, gentle thought that's been in your mind for a while.
So it's not some emergency pressure point that you're directing at the listener right now.
Precisely. It lowers the cognitive pressure. It presents the idea as pre-existing, which makes the listener feel less ambushed or rushed by your request.
The continuous past you mentioned is where this technique gets really soft, especially for needs or wishes. The simple present, I hope, can feel very direct. I hope you can help me.
Right, it's immediate. The shift to I was hoping is everywhere in professional conversation for a reason.
Let's compare them. I hope you can help me with something versus I was hoping you could help me with something.
The second phrasing is so much more strategic. It frames the request as a sort of slow-burning contemplation you've been having. It softens the impact because it sounds like a regretful statement about a past wish, rather than a present expectation you have of them.
And this applies to inquiries too. I think becomes, I was thinking or I've been thinking.
It signals contemplation rather than an immediate assertion. It's the grammar we all instinctively rely on when we have to chase someone for something that's late or follow up on a complicated email. We don't say, you didn't answer my email.
No, never. We deploy that classic soft chase email that usually starts with something like, I wanted to check if you'd had a chance to look at the proposal.
That phrase, I wanted to check, is the quintessential polite use of tense manipulation. The phrase uses the simple past, wanted, to place the responsibility for checking firmly on your past desire, not their present failure to deliver.
And then, you'd had a chance. Uses the past perfect tense.
Which pushes the expected action even further back into the past, minimizing their sense of immediate accountability. The grammar literally allows the recipient to save face.
Now let's explore how the past tense is also magnificent for one of the hardest things we have to communicate, the gracious refusal.
Oh, this is pure linguistic diplomacy. The past perfect, specifically within the third conditional structure, lets you express deep regret without implying any guilt or demanding an apology.
So the third conditional is for hypothetical past situations that can't be changed. The structure is, if X had happened, Y would have resulted.
Yes. And when you're declining an invitation, you use this structure to frame your inability to attend as an unavoidable pre-existing constraint. For instance, I would have loved to join, but I had already committed elsewhere.
Break down the impact of that sentence. How is it better than the blunt alternative, I can't come because I'm busy?
Well, the blunt statement, I'm busy, emphasizes your current state. It can sound like a priority judgment against their event. The third conditional, on the other hand, starts by establishing your positive desire. I would have loved to join.
But you start with the positive.
You start with the positive, then I'd already committed elsewhere, uses the past perfect to place the constraint in the deep past, external to this conversation. It makes it clear that your non-attendance is because of an unchangeable circumstance, not a recent choice you made to skip their event. It's just so much kinder, so much more respectful.
If the continuous past is psychological velvet, then conditional sentences are, as the notes say, the politeness royalty.
They absolutely are. They frame the entire interaction as contingent, as hypothetical, and therefore less aggressively real.
And for requests, we're mostly using the second conditional here, the hypothetical present. The structure is usually is plus past simple, then followed by a modal like would, could, or might.
And crucially, this structure pulls the request out of the immediate realm of fact and puts it into the realm of potential benefit.
So instead of ordering, have the report ready by Friday, you use a conditional to focus on the positive outcome for you.
Yes, I'd be really grateful if you could spare 10 minutes, or the professional version. It would help enormously if the report could be ready by Friday.
The listener really needs to internalize this difference. You're not demanding the report. You're just politely describing the positive outcome that would result if they perform the action.
It completely shifts the dynamic of the relationship from a superior-subordinate one to one of mutual benefit. Other high-impact phrases that do this are things like, it would mean a lot if you could take a quick look. By emphasizing the benefit the action gives to you, you're adopting a much more humble framing.
And for those of us aiming for, maximum advanced usage, let's talk about mixed conditionals. This feels complex, but vital for diplomatic maneuvering.
It is complex, but it's so powerful. The mixed conditional links a condition in one time frame, usually the past, to a result in another, like the present or future. For example, if you're gently pointing out a persistent problem, you might say something like,
Go on.
If the initial instructions had been clearer, that's the past condition, third conditional structure, we wouldn't be having this confusion now. That's the present result, second conditional structure.
That's a powerful structure because it criticizes the past action, the instructions themselves, while focusing on the present collaborative task of fixing the confusion.
Yeah.
You're using a past failure to justify the present effort without directly blaming the person for the current mess.
It creates a pathway for learning, not for assigning fault. A common commercial use might be, I would be grateful if you could let me know now, a present request, because if I had known last week, past condition, I would have been able to adjust the timeline smoothly.
I see. You're justifying your current urgency by pointing to a lost, less stressful past opportunity. It makes the urgency feel like it's externally motivated, not just you being arbitrary.
Exactly. It's not your fault, it's the situation's fault.
This next section feels like the most valuable part for high-stakes professional situations, dealing with mistakes or errors or disagreements. It's all about using grammar to keep a relationship harmonious, even when you have to call out a pretty significant failure.
And the great spoiler of harmony is the direct, accusatory you. The moment we start a sentence with, you messed up, or you did this wrong,
The defenses go right up.
instantly, the listener's first instinct is going to be defensiveness, not collaboration. So we have to use what we're calling pronoun magic to shift the focus away from the person.
And the first, most crucial transformation is moving from those you accusations to I feelings or I perceptions. Let's go back to that common error of getting the wrong document. The accusation is blunt. You sent the wrong file.
The polite I version diffuses that situation instantly. I think I might have received the wrong file. Notice the immediate shift of responsibility. You're phrasing it as a possibility or a perceptual error on your side. I think I might have received.
By doing that, you're giving the other person an immediate, non-defensive way out.
Ooh,
They can just clarify. They can say, no, that was the right one. I just forgot to tell you it was updated. You haven't cornered them into admitting failure.
right. And this applies just as much to sensitive personal critiques, like addressing someone who is always late. You move from the critical, you're late again, to the sympathetic, I was worried something had happened. I'm so glad you're here.
That transformation is remarkable. It focuses entirely on your emotional state worry, gladness, and their well-being, rather than on their failure of being late. It reinforces the human relationship first.
Another powerful use is with instructions. Instead of, you didn't follow the instructions, you should say, it looks like the instructions might have been unclear. Now the critique is directed at the document, not the person.
Which paves the way for a collaborative correction.
It does, and when the fault truly is shared, or when you just need to unify the team, we have to use the collective power of we.
We is the great relational unifier.
It is. If a deadline is missed, the direct accusation is, you missed the deadline. The collaborative shift is, looks like we missed the deadline. This signals shared responsibility and shared purpose, even if the error was technically made by just one person. The language transforms the issue from a disciplinary problem into a team problem-solving exercise.
Okay, but I have to ask, doesn't using we all the time sometimes diminish accountability? If I'm always taking the blame for someone else's mistake, aren't I just enabling them?
That is a critical point. It's a balance, and advanced communication is all about recognizing the context. If it's a one-off error by a high-performing colleague, using we is ideal for maintaining that rapport. But if it's a persistent, repeated failure that requires a formal correction,
Then we should be avoided.
in those formal cases, yes, you shift to the passive voice instead. The passive voice is the ultimate blame deflector because it focuses on the error itself, not the person who made the error.
The passive voice. Often taught in school is sloppy writing, but it's pure gold for diffusing conflict.
It is an essential tool because it removes the actor entirely. And when you remove the actor, you remove the target for the blame. Compare the active finger-pointing sentence, you broke the build.
The passive blame-free version would be, it seems the build has been broken. Or instead of someone deleted the database, you say, the database appears to have been deleted.
And by using these impersonal structures, we shift the entire conversation away from culprit hunting and toward consequence fixing. We focus on the necessary repair. And we also use other key impersonal structures for delicate situations, like there seems to have been a misunderstanding, which implies error without assigning fault.
Or the proactive, it might be helpful if the next steps were documented when you're suggesting a new procedure.
That's a great example.
Now let's talk about maximizing distance in really high conflict situations.
Yeah.
Advanced indirectness, specifically through reported speech. This is like a layered filtration system for delivering negative feedback without becoming the messenger of hostility yourself.
This is so crucial for managing organizational politics. If you deliver negative news directly, you risk becoming associated with the news itself. If you just say, John said you're incompetent, well, you are now in a direct conflict.
So we have to filter that feedback through several layers of reporting and hedging. What's the first level of softening?
The first level moves the feedback from a direct quote to a reported concern. So it becomes, John seems to have some concerns about performance. That's already better because we've used the soft verb, seems, and the general noun concerns.
But the maximally indirect approach is the true measure of a communication diplomat.
Right. And that would sound something like, I think there might have been some feedback regarding certain areas.
Okay, let's dissect that final sentence. It's so nuanced. Where are the layers of protection for the messenger?
Okay, we start with your personal opinion, I think, which immediately makes the statement subjective. Then we have the conditional possibility, might have been. We use the impersonal generalized noun feedback instead of the actual content of the criticism. And finally, we hedge the topic with the generalized phrase, certain areas.
So the message, there is a problem, is delivered. It's actionable. But it's protected by so much structural distance that the recipient can address the issue without feeling personally attacked by you, the messenger.
The grammar ensures you deliver the critique neutrally without endorsing the harshness of the original source.
This brings us to the final section, where we combine all of these structures into truly diplomatic language, starting with hedging and downtoners. This is the art of never asserting absolute certainty, even when you're sure the facts are on your side.
Hedging words are those essential modifiers that soften absolute claims. You should have a hedging word cloud in your mind as a toolkit. Perhaps, possibly, somewhat slightly, tend to, seem to, I wonder if I feel that.
These inject a kind of intellectual humility into your assertion. A claim without a hedge can so often be perceived as aggressive or rigid or just arrogant.
It can. Let's look at the multi-step transformation of a really confrontational statement into a nuanced inquiry. We'll start with the absolute, uncompromising command. This is unacceptable.
That's fighting talk.
It is. So our first layer of hedging uses a simple don't-toner adjective. This is slightly concerning. We've kept the active structure, but we've minimized the emotional heat with the word slightly.
Okay, that's better. What's the next layer?
The second layer introduces greater distance and uncertainty. We move to a personal perception and a conditional modal. I'm a little concerned that this might not quite meet the requirements.
So we've added little, might, and the crucial double hedge, not quite.
And then the ultimate diplomatic form, the one that layers all of our techniques, the question form, past continuous, multiple hedges.
What does that sound like?
I wonder if perhaps there might be a small possibility that this doesn't entirely meet the original spec.
That single sentence is a remarkable demonstration of structural deference. It's stacking, 5 distinct politeness strategies? You've got the soft inquiry starter. I wonder if the double hedges perhaps might, small possibility. The conditional structure doesn't entirely meet. And the impersonal focus on the spec rather than the person who created it.
The politeness is engineered directly into the syntax, and it allows the recipient to say, no, it totally meets the spec, let me show you why, without feeling like they failed. The speaker has prioritized the relationship over being rigidly assertive.
Another brilliant, subtle application is using negative and tag questions. These apply gentle pressure by guiding the listener toward the answer you want.
Right. A negative question implies you expect a positive answer. If you ask, are you busy? You're just asking for neutral information. But if you ask, aren't you busy right now? You are implicitly communicating respect.
How so?
You're saying, I assume you are busy and I apologize for bothering you, but I hope you are not too busy to help me. It's an implicit acknowledgement of their constraints, built right into the syntax.
And tag questions, which are so common in many English dialects, they turn a statement into a soft invitation for confirmation. But the modality of the tag matters here. An aggressive tag question can sound demanding, like, you finished that, didn't you?
It can, but an ultra-polite tag question uses a negative modal to soften the request initially. If you use the negative, you couldn't lend me a pen, could you?
Yeah.
The initial negative framing makes the request sound very tentative. It signals that you recognize it might be an imposition.
And adding the tag, could you, at the end turns it into a genuine, soft plea.
It does. Or you have the standard confirmation request used to show respect. We'll meet at 10 if that's all right with you. That conditional tag, if that's all right with you, shows you're respecting their schedule and their potential to veto the plan.
All these techniques are most powerful when we see them combined in real-world communication templates. This is where we go from theory to a kind of forensic application, breaking down the blueprints for diplomatic mastery.
Yes. Let's start with template 1, chasing a late deliverable. This is the email everyone dreads sending.
And the subject line itself has to set a non-confrontational tone. Something like gentle nudge.
Right. And the very first line is a masterclass in hedging and distance. I just wanted to check in very gently. Please ignore if I'm wrong, but I wonder if you'd had a chance to look at the Project Orion files. Let's just analyze that string of politeness devices.
We start with, I just wanted to check in. That's the past tense for psychological distance. It puts the desire to check in the past, reducing the pressure in the present moment.
Then it's followed immediately by very gently, which is a powerful adverbial hedge, a down toner signaling low emotional stakes, and then the critical easy out.
Please ignore if I'm wrong.
Yes, this preemptively absolves the recipient of blame if they've already sent it and maybe you just missed it.
And then the core request itself is framed with that modal conditional. I wonder if you'd had a chance. The phrase, I wonder if, is highly tentative, and you'd had a chance uses the past perfect to push the expected action further back, minimizing their current accountability.
And the ending is just as strategic. It avoids demanding delivery. Instead, it offers them the power to restructure the timeline.
Or if a new timeline would be more realistic.
That final conditional phrasing just ensures the entire request remains collaborative. It demonstrates deep respect for their workload and their autonomy.
Okay, let's move to template 2, rejecting a job candidate. This is so psychologically difficult. You have to deliver disappointing news, but maintain goodwill.
And this template achieves that kindness through strategic pronoun use and impersonal structures. The opening has to establish a warm, personal connection using I feelings, something like, it was a genuine pleasure getting to know you.
That softens the blow by acknowledging their effort and their value as a person.
Then comes the rejection, and it cannot be direct. It has to use an impersonal, hedged structure for the official reasoning.
So what's the core rejection phrase?
We've decided to move forward with a candidate whose experience is slightly more closely aligned with one particular technical stack we use.
That is surgically precise. The phrase, slightly more closely aligned, is the key hedge. It means the rejection isn't about the candidate being inadequate. It's about a minor, niche technical preference. It makes the decision about technical alignment, not personal failure.
So the candidate leaves feeling valued, not incompetent, and the closing reinforces this. Instead of a vague goodbye, the template uses strong, positive framing. I'm certain you'll have multiple offers very soon.
The use of I'm certain gives a final boost of assurance, ending the communication on a high note.
It does.
Our final template is one that causes a huge amount of anxiety for people, asking a boss for a raise. Success here depends entirely on framing the discussion not as a financial demand, but as a conversation about mutual contribution and future development.
And this is achieved entirely through the conditional setup and minimizing the intrusion. The subject line has to be neutral, focused on their time. Quick chat when you have bandwidth. And the request itself must use maximum deferral.
Let's analyze the request for the meeting time.
Yeah,
I was wondering whether you might have 15 minutes sometime in the next couple of weeks for a quick catch-up.
We have stacked every possible layer of deference in there. I was wondering, is the past continuous for a soft inquiry? Whether you might have is the double modal conditional, making the time feel entirely hypothetical. We specify 15 minutes, which minimizes the perceived intrusion on their time.
And giving a wide window sometime in the next couple of weeks shows we respect how busy their schedule is.
And then the final, absolutely critical easy out has to be included.
Which is,
Of course, only if your schedule allows no rush whatsoever. This provides the ultimate respect for the boss's constraints. It means they feel they have complete control over the timing. They don't feel cornered or pressured to agree immediately, which ironically increases the likelihood they'll give a positive response later.
this detailed breakdown brings us to a summary, a practical 8-point checklist. This is the actionable takeaway. It's the mental filter you should run any sensitive communication through before you hit send.
Right. This checklist basically operationalizes everything we've learned about creating distance, using hedges, and showing deference.
Okay, point 1. Did I use at least one conditional or modal? Think could, would, might, or the word if.
Second, is the overall communication framed as a question, not as a declarative statement? Just remember, questions are invitations, statements are orders.
Third, Did I add a past tense or past continuous structure for that psychological distance?
Yeah.
So I wanted to check it would be helpful if.
Fourth, did I include a hedge or a down toner? Perhaps a bit a seem to?
Fifth, did I explicitly thank or appreciate the person's time or their effort even before the task is done?
Sixth, and this is a big one, did I give them an easy out, no rush, only if convenient, when you have a second, please ignore if I'm wrong?
Seventh, did I avoid direct you blame and successfully use the passive voice or I perception statements instead?
And finally, eighth, did I use positive framing where possible, focusing on solutions or benefits or future opportunities, even when delivering tough news?
If you can tick, say, 6 or more of those points, you have successfully used advanced grammar to protect your rapport. You've transformed a potentially demanding interaction into a diplomatic exchange. Just remember this simple rule. Conditionals make the demand hypothetical, and hypotheticals are always less aggressive than direct statements.
I think ultimately the most important insight we gain today is that true advanced politeness isn't just about adding more friendly words. It's about choosing grammatical structures that inherently demonstrate respect for the other person's time, their face, and their autonomy.
It's a learned skill.
It is, and it's the hallmark of effective, sophisticated communication.
By systematically using questions, conditionals, and passive structures, you're communicating that you value their ability to choose and their need to save face. And that prevents you from ever sounding demanding or aggressive. You're mastering the art of the gracious ask.
And we really encourage you to start small. Just commit to using one new trick today. For instance, try replacing every internal command you think of with the past continuous structure. Turn "I need that report" into "I was hoping we could discuss that report later this afternoon," and just observe the immediate positive change in response and rapport you get back.
It's a small grammatical shift with a massive impact on your professional and your personal relationships.
A huge impact.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into advanced grammatical structures for gracious communication. We hope you'll incorporate these into your professional life. If you enjoyed this session, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss our next deep dive.